Alright, sorry, actually, I had a call and it kind of cut off the video there, I guess. I mean, it couldn't just continue, and it's cool though. But, I'm gonna still get back. I mean, this will be considered part 2, and, see where we can go from here. I found my hair tie somewhere, but I don't know what I did with that. So, okay, where did I leave off with y'all on part 1? Okay, I'll start from here. Actually, I was describing spirit, actually. Okay, yeah, I think the last thing I left off at, if I'm not mistaken, was speaking about spirit and honoring these ways of our ancestors, and not only that, but our deceased loved ones. I was describing, basically, being able to have an altar, besides the pictures, giving them something that represents them, whether it's an item, whether it's something that that they love, a scent, a picture of something that they love. Always make sure that you bring out something to bring that energy out for them, and that'll definitely put you in a better understanding and connection with that energy, rather than letting it just float around and dissolve. Like, they're your loved ones. They want you to connect with them. So, yeah, but I'll continue from that, actually. It says here, after and spirit, or even through sacred dance and movement or creating rituals that use the elements of chakra correspondences. By connecting with the obvious and subtle energies, you can act intentionally to create more thoughtful, stronger you. So also, like I said, ways of yoga, ways of sacred dance, that's why you see the native, if you see, Native Americans moving in a certain way and dancing in a certain motion, it's a connection to a divine source. There's certain ways they stomp the ground. There's certain energies of animals that they invoke. There's certain spirits that are coming within from the dance of honoring their ancestors. Same if you go to Africa, you see the dances, the foot movement, the stomping of the ground, the drumming. What else do you have? Just imagine that. Just the hip movement, being able to bring that energy through up your spine, really. Just being able, to have certain motions and know certain motions, it can activate so many certain energies in the mind and the brain, you wouldn't even know. It's just, we have to be able to learn how to move to contact it. Even salsa, it's just, you move in certain ways, you invoke a power within that dance. Trust me, you definitely invoke a power within that dance. The fourth step is to commit to doing the inner work required to free, unstress your energies, and balance your chakras. You can do this by learning to use potentials of chakras that best fit a given place, time, and meditating on the center that is most important in regard to what you're doing at a given moment. For most of us, 4 steps take time and effort. They require motivation, dedication, and perseverance. That's the discipline. Are you willing to give them a try? Several lanterns of perception can increase your ability to work with the chakras. As you move through the chapters on specific chakras, besides focused meditations and other methods working with each chakra are offered. Don't imagine that you have to use all of these methods mentioned. Use those that appeal to you. Different approaches work for different people. Use what you find useful. And that goes for anything. It's just daily life. Do what works for you. Plain and simple. Somebody's like, oh, I'm sitting here and I meditate this way and I focus on this and this is how it works. No, it might not be that way for you. I mean, you might be able to meditate, but you might have to, oh, you are able to meditate if you quiet your mind. But it might just be a different way that you have to attain that mindfulness, to be able to quiet your mind. Music may work for you. Silence may work for another. The sun may work for another. The darkness may work for another. Like, it's different ways. Somebody might visualize white light. Somebody just might be more connected to red, and that's just what works for them. So don't take in all of these things that you're always committed and reading in these books and saying that, it has to be this way. Picture the golden light or the black. Like, no, just, work on it in a way that gives more of an understanding to yourself and just get the results to what it is you need in your life. Balancing your chakras to unlock potential. Developing our chakras means awakening and expanding possibilities within ourselves. We are going beyond the previous limitations of our inner nature and awakening our higher sense of who we can be, says Mataji. She goes on. In this process, when you open your chakras, there is a union of the high and low. The chakras are all connected. As a result, when you awaken the chakras at the top, you also awaken those at the bottom. The energy that is working in the chakras becomes active in the lower ones as well. With more understanding of upper levels of consciousness, you are trying to climb. Hold up. With more understanding of upper levels of consciousness, you are trying to climb two. Okay. You can work. They spelled that two wrong, actually. That's what kind of confused me there. You can work more effectively on the lower chakras. Oh, no, I see what they did. Okay, with more understanding of upper levels of consciousness that you are trying to climb to. I see. You can work more effectively in the lower chakras. As we work to connect with energy of our higher chakras, it is easy to fall into trap of thinking, oh, my energy is higher than another person's. When we do that, we slide right back into the self-centered ego. Philosopher Ken Wilber sidesteps that tendency by speaking of deepening rather than raising our consciousness. He echoes psychologists Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. Deepening refers to becoming able to perceive the deeper thoughts, feelings, motives, impulses that lie in our subconscious. We may suddenly remember past events we have forgotten that show us in a less favorable light. So, with it's saying basically in ways that, we get into that judgment again, as I stated before. And, there's so many situations where people are like, hey, I've attained this part, I can't, although you should surround yourself by similar energy. If you're going into the mindset of really, saying that your energy is better than another's, if they're on a similar path, then it's probably better that you should elevate them rather than, putting them in a more degrading state of mind of sorts. It says also, deepening refers to becoming able to perceive the deeper thoughts involving feelings, motives, impulses that lie hidden in our subconscious. So, and it says, events we have forgotten that show us in a less favorable light. It's recommending people tend to forget where they come from. And a lot of people know how that is because they've gone through that. Especially if you're in the position where you were the one that helped the person get to where they are today. That's least favorable. And then those people go on and, they, like I said, they forget about what got them there, which would have been you. Of course, if you're not willing to acknowledge it, of course, you're wanting to forget it and it remains latent. But if somebody else is in a similar situation that even you've been in and they get that experience for themselves, then it'll act as that kind of catalyst to really make a person be more aware of how they got to where they are or how they attain that state of mind and how they can elevate others rather than, like I said, degrade them in sorts. You don't really, like if it's willing, I mean, like I said, you communicate with who you choose, but if there's people who see you and admire maybe you financially, admire you emotionally, admire you spiritually, just work on ways of how you could help somebody elevate. If you've been in a situation in the relationship and somebody else is having a similar thing in a similar scenario in a relationship, it's good to communicate so you can help that person maybe figure out what to do with themselves or with that person, or whether they should continue or just give it up. Even, like I said, emotionally, like if you're just like, oh, I have problems dealing with this. I mean, even expressing that, getting into it, maybe having a conversation or doing self-work of whatever it takes for yourself, to better it and, become a better you, then, like I said, by all means, just remember what caused it, though, so you can start to reverse that process. And, don't act like you've never been in a position as somebody else if you know for a fact that you have. That's just blatantly ignorant. So, okay, so I'll continue on this. Balancing your chakras to unlock potential. Developing our chakras means awakening and expanding possibilities within ourselves. We are going beyond the previous limitations of our inner nature and awakening our higher sense of who we can be, says Mataji, and she goes on. That's where I left off, actually. In this process, when you open your chakras, there is a union of high and low. Okay, actually, no, I'm actually going all the way back. I'm sorry. I thought I switched the page already. But, okay. In this sense, deeper and higher are part of the same path towards greater realization of our potential. So it's like they're always connected. There's something in that low that got you to the higher point by doing the work to get there, and there's those highs that you have to also work on, like I said, as far as like remembering how you got there to keep it in a cyclical format. They are a part of the process of finding our inner self that helps us move beyond an egotistical view of ourselves and others. As we do this, we move away from the being forever trapped in aspects of our personality that we dislike or that are counterproductive for us. We create less bad karma as we discover... I don't know why they carry that. We create less bad karma, the helpful or harmful effects of our actions, consequences. It's consequences. You're not dictated by this God above you. There's nothing judging you. It's not, it's cause and effect. It's the laws of Hermeticism and the axioms of the universal law. As we discover how our chakras are connected, we illuminate inner truths and open up doorways to constructive change. Constructive. You can't work with this work and destroy yourself unless, you're starting something and not finishing it. You gotta put in the work in a consistent pattern if you want to see results. Like, are you going to sit there and think you're going to go to the, not go to the gym and keep a nice body because, at one point you were young and you were able to? Or are you going to take the initiative to really take your ass to the gym and make a change within yourself to get the results that make you happy with yourself? So, Yeah, it's like you don't do it for somebody else, do it for you. Pilot Baba view of connection among chakras is similar to massages. You hold up, I gotta wait for these dots to clear out from that flash. as each one, actually I'm gonna turn that flash off. Give me one moment. Actually, it's not even gonna allow me, so forget it. I gotta do that before the video. Alright. So it says Pilo Baba adds. Okay, wrong side. Pilo Baba adds, views of connection among the chakras is similar to massages. As you use each one, you are drawing from the energies of others as well. You want to be able to see which wave you are riding and also what is drawing from other chakras. How is the way that you are going to think, speak, or act connected with your past and or with your present state of mind and feeling? In meditation, you have to go deep into your inner silence to perceive these things, to know about your mind. So, for example, like if you're bringing things into a relationship, just use that for, just because. If you're going in with these ways of past traumas and you realize that things may start to seem similar of sorts, or you feel like the energy, like you feel like you may have not let go of it entirely, you could be bringing a lot of that energy into a present relationship. So the way that, what does it say? Think, speak, and connect it with your actions. Like, so if you're speaking to that person the way that you used to speak to that other person, or they may speak to you in ways where that other person has spoken to you, and it makes it a little hard to deal with. And that's where communication does come into, it really does come into being an importance within yourself, like, and your relationship. What else? And thinking. If you're bringing in ways that you're thinking somebody's going to do exactly what happened in your past, that's something that needs to be worked on. It's not, like I said, I'm not saying that anything is an easy process. For sure, everything takes work. But if you are putting that kind of energy out to someone, or in your life, in your daily life, if you're putting out those ways of thinking like, oh, this always happens when, so yes, you're creating that pattern of this is always going to happen when, change that, do the ritual, like I said, and especially, like I said, because most people have more problems with relationships than a lot of other problems in the world, because it's just how we start to submit ourselves and give our energy. So it's like, basically, will these actions of the way that you thought in your past affect your present relationship? If it does, then at least try to work on that so you don't put your partner in that position of that feeling of your past, especially when they're ready to begin on a new slate and a fresh canvas. The way you act, like, are you acting in a negative manner? If you've always been a negative minded person, are you going to feel like that's going to get you anywhere? If you're always closed off to anything, has that ever brought you opportunity in your life? Ever? I doubt it. I'm not going to say there might have been that one instance where you were like, oh, like, I'm still doing well and I'm pretty close. Like, cool, good for you. But would there have been other opportunities that you think could have been a product of your life if you would have maybe given a person a chance? You talked to somebody beyond judging what you thought that and how they were going to be and how they were going to act. So you may have missed an opportunity, there's so many ways. Like if we're just like, mad at the world, then the world will act mad at you. You're going to get out what you put in, and that's basically the law of attraction. So if you're having these problems, know what you're putting out, know how you're thinking, and know how you're acting, and also just know how you're speaking to others, because speaking to others can go a long way for the benefit or for even cutting people off that no longer serve you. So definitely take that into consideration. Okay? It says your energy can be stopped at any point, stuck in destructive ways of being. When that happens, you are crossing the river looking back, thinking as acting and as you have done in the past. Instead, you are on the path, if you are on the path, cross and keep going. And that's basically what I said. Like, don't look back into your past. And even if you have to look at where you came from, don't live in the form and thinking of what it made you today. You don't want to go on a backwards route, for sure. Higher consciousness can raise lower consciousness that opens the window to do something different. You don't have to just plod along. There are points at which you can make a jump, like a monkey that jumps from branch to branch. This is the part of transcendental means. You transcend your old ways and move into a new way. It is possible. I have seen it many times. But don't think that you getting wise in one jump. You have to jump into something new again and again. Cross the river and keep going. It is a process. You grow into it. So, like it says, just take your time, though. It's based upon experience. It's based upon, the consequences that we may have learned in our life as we go on. If something is going on in your life that's working for you, like I said, find ways that you can enhance that so you can build on it so you don't have to worry about losing it. That goes for your business. That goes for your relationship. That goes for your family. Whatever you're trying to do and better yourself in where you feel there's that blockage, definitely apply that concept. Because, like I said, you don't want to look back because, once you look back, everything starts going in reverse again. And then you're in the same situation where you can, that you're back to your past. You're literally living in your past. It may feel like you're with somebody new, but that person is always going to remind you of the other as the person that of what they have came from, and that's bringing your past into your living. And you don't want to be reminded by these things. Like it says, start new, start a fresh slate. The term balancing the chakras is widely used. It is analogous to balancing the left analytical masculine hemisphere of our brain with the right creative feminine side. So, it's, you're both, you find balance. If you're too overly analytical with no creativity, you become a certain style of person. Because you're not allowing things to flow, and maybe you're a little overly constructive. I know for a personal fact, I've had to do balancing where I realized that I had to bring out more of my creative side. But then sometimes you can have the alternative of being too creative, and then you're never grounded within yourself to ever make about, a logical and analytical change. And that's when you have those kind of like super flowy artists that thinks that it's just always going to be that, which, yeah, it can be. And it can be great, but a good artist also has a constructive and logical way of thinking along with creating their art. There's a science behind their art. Every individual artist. Part of balancing the chakras, we need both sides working together to function optimally. Once anyone who gets stuck in using just one side of the brain or just one chakra cannot develop their full potential. As I was saying, because you're leaning too much toward one side or you're leaning too much towards the other, balancing the chakras, using them in complementary ways. Then you can draw the positive energy of the chakra that offers most in a given situation. When Pilot Baba says, "Which wave are you riding?" he asks which chakra energy is dominant for you or dominant at a given time and place. Knowing what empowers you gives you the freedom to choose whether to meet a situation directly or step out of it if that is possible and appropriate. Like I said, sometimes people, we get stuck in these situations where, we need to remove ourselves from it in order for growth. Or just suffer the consequences. But we still have to know which one is more dominating and what's causing, what do we need to work on to bring about that balance within ourselves. The fourth chakra is central when we speak about balancing the chakras because it exists at the midpoint with three chakras above it and 3 below it, because so many people are afraid to open their heart. It is where most people get stopped so that they live out their lives in their first 3 chakras without ever developing the potentials of the 4th, 5th, and perhaps even the 6th and 7th chakras. So, that speaks on volumes. It's the chakra happens to be the center between the both. You have 3 below, 3 above. You're right in the center, and that's where we have the most complications. That's why I focus on, when I speak, about this, I do focus on as far as really getting on the heart side of things, because that's where a lot of us have that blockage, and we see it every day, whether it's in somebody else's relationship, within ourselves, like I said, within the family, with whatever's stagnant. And if you're unable to open up your heart, you can't give it. You can never give it. You can tell somebody that you can act like you're giving it. You can think that you're giving your all. But if you have some kind of blockage that has caused that and you haven't healed from it, your heart chakra is still closed and you won't be able to move above and beyond that. It's just, you get stagnant in that level, and then you still have the same consequences from your thinking, the way you're speaking of it, and the way you're acting about it. So take that in mind. Working with what you can do now. In response to a question about the best way for someone to work on developing the positive potentials of their chakras, Mataji replied, "You have to do things when the time is right for you. You can't make springtime in the winter." I like that. Some people, once they begin searching, have a fairly easy time of it. Others have to struggle. Some people even go in absolutely the wrong direction until they find the right one. The awkward attempt to understanding something that we don't yet understand is all a part of the path. Even when you meet difficulty, facing resolutely can help you evolve on your personal and spiritual path. So, that's, we all go through walks of life differently. There's some, like I said, there's some that are easily given to people, and there's some people that have to struggle. It's different for everybody. But you can't judge, one person from another just because they had it differently. Because, there might be something that's still connecting you, even if they were gifted that, certain opportunity in life. It says, we all have different kinds of energy. Your chakra work begins where it begins for you, not where it begins for someone else. If you are an alcoholic and you need a drink, for instance, accept that. Then you can begin to make choices about what you're willing to let go of and strive to improve the actions you take. You begin your journey from where you are standing now. A simple teacher from Nepal, Milk Baba, says, how can anyone learn about the chakras unless they do the work to awaken their chakras? How are you going to expect change if you're not working on it? How do you expect something to become better in your life if you're not doing anything about what's causing these consequences to happen within your life? I mean, you can pray all you want, and you can invoke your God all you want. You can do all of these things, but if you're not taking the time to self-reflect and work on your inner self, you can't move forward. I mean, what one person calls chakras, another group of people may see it as a different representation. But we all come back to the basis of learning to see within ourselves that are causing problems. Some people like to work with one chakra until they get it. Others prefer to move back and forth between different chakras and their respective qualities. If you're in the latter group, you might even decide to focus on different chakras during each day of the week. You can use the correspondence chart to see which chakra is linked to which day of the week and do the work and meditations connected with it. For example, on Sunday, the day linked to the third chakra, you can focus on your solar plexus. You might chant the seed sound Rang. For example, the chant associated with the mantra Ahimsa several times for peace of mind before meditating on your inner experience of the third chakra qualities. Then notice how you do and don't express its qualities during the day. So, like I said, it's attempt, trial, and experience. So, again, that song is Rang, R-A-N-G. It says, use that several times. Then chant the associated mantra, Ahimsa, Ahimsa. So just in case y'all need to put in your own pronunciation of whatever sorts, but you got Rang and Ahimsa. Focusing on a different chakra each day a week might feel like too much jumping around for you. An alternative way to work is to select one chakra and meditate on it every day for a month. As you do, focus on awakening a particular positive potential until you feel it in your daily life. Or you might focus on a negative quality connected with a chakra that your witness consciousness tells you is causing you trouble, and work on letting it go away. When you focus on one chakra daily in your meditations for a month, you'll learn about it through direct experience. After focusing on a different chakra each month for 7 months, you will have a fuller understanding of them all. So that's, just one way of looking at that. Okay, almost through this chapter. It says, this is a question a lot of people ask, actually, because, everybody is out there usually seeking a mentor of sorts and turning them into their god and idol these days instead of, just accepting what they bring and offer and what kind of energy they have. But, everyone looks for that guru, and I'm not saying it's necessarily bad because, people want a catalyst of, how to have some of these experiences. And, it fluctuates for different people. For these, it always becomes just one of those times where we have to realize, like, okay, we're going to have to start doing our own personal research. Like, if you have a guru or you have somebody that you admire or that you receive your information, don't take that person in wholly, because then you're just regurgitating all their information. And you're becoming that person. In certain aspects, if you admire them, then yes, that you want to. but don't regurgitate. Like, have these experiences for yourself so that you're able to talk about them, and then, pass that on to other people, that, like I said, in the like-minded communities that you guys surround yourself in, whether it's the light workers, whether it's us on the left-hand and Luciferian path, for the Satanists, all of these categories and, spiritual enlightenment paths are all about, self-enlightenment, personal preservation, and, being able to raise the vibration and raise the intellect that surrounds you so you can keep attracting that. Or at least so you can put that little spark within somebody so we don't have all these confusions running around, because it becomes like, then you're running, you come into these, you're so in tune with, your certain path now. When you get a person that doesn't understand, you'll automatically tell, when a person can't understand, but you can still even use subject words for that person to at least tell them, hey, in a non-offending way, maybe to go look it up, whether they choose to. Like, there's certain people that just don't want to further their mind. They don't want to learn anything new. So, that becomes the problem. That becomes the issue. And then they remain stagnant. But you had that, but there's going to be that one person that's like, they did, or even if they do let it go, they're going to be like, okay, damn, I did hear this one person tell me about chakras. Let me look it up now, or I saw it again, so maybe I should look it up because maybe there's a reason I'm seeing it. So, it's definitely good to take heed again to the awareness factor and, be aware like what that consequence will have in your life, especially when it comes to the law of attraction. Don't get me wrong. Some people are too far gone, and you can't change, you can't get the religion out of them. You can't get the ideologies out of them when they go into spirituality because they're carrying on their past once again into something new, which is a fresh, clean slate. Like, we deprogram to reprogram. So, like I always, you stress, like, forgetting all that you have ever learned. If it comes to a spiritual path that didn't work for you, and start to apply ways that may work for you. So, definitely, like I said, take heed to the awareness and, start to realize what it is that, these changes like are making and are beneficial towards you. Okay. So it says, Paila Bobby and Mataji Narmanda Puri say, not necessarily, as in you don't need the guru. You can work with the chakras comfortably by yourself. Your guru is already inside. This does not mean that a guru or teacher is not useful. Catalyst. Just that at a certain point, it is important to find your own internal teacher who will awaken your understanding of your unique path in your own liberation. Everything is a gate. You yourself can choose which gates you want to walk through. One gate will take you this way. The other gate, says actually how he did it. One gate will take you this way. The other will take you to this. If you see what I'm saying? So, do you want yourself to be open or do you want yourself to be closed? And, that's all about progress, so you can get to this point and get out of this, because do this for a long period of time, that's going to become uncomfortable. That's basically the representation of your blocked chakra. Like, try holding your fist all day, It's going to get to a point where you're going to have to release your hand. And doesn't that feel better? So it's just the same symbology of opening up, Which life do you choose? Are you going for the light? Focus on the best thing that seems possible for you. Surrender everything that keeps you from following that path. When I went into the mountains, I had a feeling of someone forcing me higher and higher in the Himalayas and in myself. It was my own impulse, not what anyone else was saying I should do. Trust your own experiences. Do not trust what other people are telling you or telling you to do. That is true freedom, true liberation. As long as you are following others' agendas, you are not free. In our schools, in our society, we do not teach freedom. We give it lip service. We need to truly teach it. Okay, I was going to see if this was actually going into that with the whole social ways. I don't see it. So basically, I mean, it's saying, we're designed to be a product of our social structure, and our programming. We talk about wanting to be, ultimately free, but freedom requires what? You have to necessarily do this because you feel like either your parents want you to do that, you feel like that will make them proud, or we feel like there's certain jobs we have to be stuck in and we can't get past that. And we get in that same mental concept of thinking, and we're not able to evolve past that. So we put ourselves back into this ritualistic pattern that's like, it creates that stagnation. It's like, okay, so it's supposed to be like, okay, if I want to change something, what am I going to do from here and what's going to work for me? How can I go about these ways of possibly changing something inside myself so I can have a greater a greater outcome in my own life? Like, everybody wants something better. I'm not going to say something more, but we get to these points in our lives where there's things that we refrain from expressing because we think that either we can no longer do it, it's too late to be done, or we don't have the time for it. And that's when we're bringing things back into that linear concept of time constraint. So it's amazing how we can be on these social networks, but, we can't find the time to go to the gym. We can't find the time to, focus on our relationships and problems within it. We can't find our time to, reach out and communicate to others, especially family. It seems then everybody's like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been so busy. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, that does come about as well. But there's also times where you have time. And people will spend a whole hour on a social network that could have really been devoted to something else in their time. So, like I said, we're so busy taking these things into a linear concept, it becomes a problem because we're constrained to the ideals of hours and minutes. I mean, it works. I mean, if you have a work schedule and appointments to be a part of, understood. But at the same time, I mean, you have to look at it as like, what are you doing when you're not having that time? Could you give yourself time for your art? Could you give yourself time to write your book? Could you give yourself the time to do your music? The time that your family feels like you may have not been giving to them, whether it be your son, your daughter, your significant other, like, have you been devoting the time that you could be ultimately giving to really bring about some sort of elevation in the stagnant points of where you're suffering? So, definitely take time to self-reflect on that for a moment. Okay. His words share several points in common with Western existential philosophy. Okay, let me start that over. His words share several points in common with Western existential philosophy. Why did I say that? Such as the emphasis on our personal responsibility for what we do and what we perceive, and even for the language we choose to describe our experiences and events around us. you create your language. You can't understand the meaning of the words without having the experience. Only through direct experience does so-called information become real knowledge. Likewise, French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre declared that each of us is responsible for everything we do. Even if we seek advice from others, we choose our advisor and have some idea of the course he or she will recommend. Not choosing is still a choice for which we are responsible. You know, like we can't blame others for our situation. We self-reflect and we learn from it. If it keeps happening again, then we're doing the same shit. So that's one thing that we also have to realize. You know, if faced with inevitable circumstances, we still choose how we are in those circumstances. Like, so for example, something can happen to you. Yes, it can put a drastic change in the trauma that you receive from it because it can be a dire situation. A lot of people have gone through different things, molestation, rapes, accidents, family abuse, just all sorts of variety of things that anybody could have gone through. It affects you. But at the end of the day, we have to look at how we can better ourselves. Do I say forget about it? No, don't forget about it, because again, that comes back to the term of actually knowing where you came from, starting with the root to get to where you are now, to raise yourself to your crown and become your greatest person within yourself. You know, you have to acknowledge that. Like if you go, like I said, if you go through these situations, take time to work on them. And like I said, it's not an overnight process. You're going to have to work on certain things within yourself to get there. But it starts with you. And if you want the change, this is a good place to start. If you want to collect pearls, you have to dive deep. So don't confuse your mind by sitting on the beach and expecting pearls to come sit in your basket. That was from Johari, I believe. One who is responsible for all he doesn't have to... One who is responsible for all he doesn't have to blame anyone for his problems. Okay, One who is responsible for all he has... or for all he doesn't have to blame anyone else for his problems. So you're accepting, like, shit, I got myself here. I am the reason why I am here. And, you know, like I said, you can't blame anyone for that. Because we all have choice. We all have free will. When you learn that independence and gain confidence in yourself, then you can work most effectively on your chakras. You don't need somebody to come and guide you at every step. Learn not to depend on a teacher, not to depend on anybody, not even to depend on God, and then you will depend on you. Then will you grow up and be responsible for all that you do. I don't think I have to really go into that. I mean, that speaks volumes for itself. Don't become dependent. You can have situations that you have where something elevates you, they enhance you, true, but don't depend on it to make you financially stable, emotionally stable. When it comes to another individual, someone to make you happy, like you have to have these within yourself first to be able to be happy to be in something. Like I said, it's just like, you can't get into these situations to begin with. Like I said, if you're not happy within yourself, like how could you give that? How could you give your heart? This view parallels of analyst Carl Jung, who distinguishes between individualism and individuation. Individuation is realizing our own unique potentialities. It is coming to know, giving expression to, and harmonizing the various components of our psyche. He found that through listening to the messages of our imagination and dreams, we can contact and reintegrate the different parts. Individualism, widely misunderstood and misused, all too often actually means a lack of individuality. Keep that in mind. I'll reread that one more time. Individualism, widely misunderstood and widely misused, all too often actually means a lack of individuality in what we are expected to mouth in the same slogans, act in the same ways, and buy the same products as others, while looking down to those who are different. Or it can mean identifying with our self-centered ego, thereby getting lost in illusions about who we are instead of actually discovering our inner selves. Like I said, it's like, why are we this way? Like, I mean, if you're sitting there and you know, like, you're an asshole or whatever, then why are you an asshole? Is it because people will kind of, they'll, like, but do you have to be? No. Could you change some part of that in yourself? Most likely. Or could you surround yourself with more people that you understand so you don't, or not just understand, but be able to share and exchange information and intellect, and actually, go to the full extent of the sophistication that you have attained over life. And, don't become in that same pattern of like, okay, well, I'm like this because of, no. Do you want to be like that? Does it work for you? If it does, by all means. But if you see that there's a problem there and you can admit to certain things, then just, admit it to yourself. Don't get lost in that illusion. Like it says, we are sloganed to mouth the same slogans. It's like we always say something that our parents say when we get older. We mouthing the same things. How often is it that when is it that we're going to start creating our own slogan to better our own children for the future to come? Or how can we make the old slogan into a new slogan that they can even understand in this lifetime? How can we go about this change? Or are we just regurgitating what we heard all this life and we're programming it to every situation that it seems to apply for, We act in the same ways. Some people, for example, you see people and they're like, oh, well, you act like your mother, you act like your father, yeah, or you act like you might have your grandmother's traits. You might have never even known them, but you still have the traits. Are the traits good? Are they beneficial? If that's the case, then maybe that's not something that you have to work on. But, on a different note, if it seems to be a bad thing, if you're acting out of violence and anger all the time, there might be a trauma for a reason that you do, and, things, it's just traumatic. It can be very detrimental for your life. And also, acting in the same ways, it's like, okay, well, you have to go to school to get the most amazing job. Does it have an influence on life? And can it actually open up opportunities for you? Yes, it very much can. But do you necessarily have to act upon that to be successful? No, you don't. See, you have to have the divide and understand the polarities of the greatness of applying your potentials to this life. Says, and buy the same products as others, you can get the same product with the same chemicals in it that is maybe cheaper, but you want that brand because it looks good. It's probably doing just the exact same thing. You're watching and you're observing all this marketing, and you feel all these marketing schemes employs, you're really taking this in to being like, I need this. You're taking it as a need and you're not dividing it from your wants. And that's when it's becoming a problem. Because, granted, some things look nice. People do like certain products for certain reasons. Don't get me wrong. Because, all in all, you get what you pay for. But I mean, a lot of the times we see other people buy something else, so we try it out. How often do any of you really go out and be like, I'm going to try this product just because it spoke out to me? I read about it, like on the bottle itself or whatever the material that it is. And you're like, okay, I got my information from it. I'll give it a try. And then if somebody else somebody else might like it. They might enjoy the product. So you're that catalyst of showing them the product. You're creating, you're being a leader. You're not following in the ways of, being able to, being a sheep. You don't want to. You don't want to be led by some, falsified shepherd. So it's definitely, like I said, it comes to, these realizations of, actually establishing yourself, like doing things out of your own action to become great. And, that will be the concept of the individuation versus the individualization that they're speaking of here. Movement from individualism to individuation is in which we draw out our full potential as a major step in becoming whole. As we come to know our uniqueness, we are no longer slaves to others' beliefs. In contrast to the pseudo-individualism, the following others view other. I'm mixing that up. In contrast to the pseudo-individualism of following others' views of who and how we ought to be. And that's basically what I was getting on. Because, no one can tell you who and what you ought to be. Be what you want to be. Don't limit yourself to any form of success or opportunity. If you want to do your art, if you want to write, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to experience life for what it is because you can at the time, by all means, utilize your avenues that are given to you in life. And also the ones that you have created for yourself, you can't do and be something for someone else. That'll put you in such a detrimental state of mind that you don't realize that, you're even doing it for them anymore. Like you didn't even get to really do what it was that you dreamed of or something that you just were passionate about. So, definitely, take heed to embracing it is and what is in ways that you think that it would be beneficial to. Some people think it's for the world, but, only a handful of people are going to hear you. Yes, even 1 million people to 6 million people is still, in this world, 1 billion, it's still a handful. So those who are able to actually hear you, you're able to be that catalyst to, at least get them in a motion of, being their greatest potential. So definitely take advantage of utilizing your passion, because if you don't, the older you get, it'll be a part of you, and you will always wonder what would have been if you would have. And you don't want to really be stuck in a scenario of what if, because then you're also blocking a point again within the chakras. So, definitely take heed to what you're doing by not embracing what it is that you're passionate about. I'm a strong advocate of that. Jung pointed to a universal individuation, a community of realized selves. On such a path, we see and hear how we share the common spirit of the world. At the same time, we are becoming more fully ourselves. In so doing, we awaken to become our own guru. So, that's why I stress, if you're in a community that's, I'd say not along the lines that you are. Like, if you are on this spiritual path and you're surrounded by like a group of people who take this religion thing, wholehearted, and they can't have this understanding, it causes a little bit of misunderstanding and a little bit of conflict, because they're not on the same wavelength, at least not yet. But, some people are open, to, really accepting some things to an extent. So, but it's being, like I said, we're no longer slaves to others' beliefs. And it says a community of realized selves, because once we start to actually section ourselves around those individuals, it's still the concept of the law of attraction. It's inevitable. You're going to have that gravitate towards you because that's who you became. You've elevated. So you don't even see these people who sort of weren't on that wavelength. They just start to dissipate after a while. You're just like, well, damn, I wonder, that person wasn't feeling what I was on, so now they're gone. They weed themselves out, but if they're willing to elevate, sometimes, there's able to be a general collective. And, that allows people to really get in, a state of mind, a state of understanding, and a good feeling when you're able to talk about something that you love or something that you like to experience, something that you're trying to experience, things that you are confused about because it's a part of the occult and the unknown, or the unseen. Occult, like I say, is just hidden knowledge. People can't accept that. They try to Hollywoodize the word cult with occult, which are two separate anomalies. And you can't bring these things together and be one and the same. Do certain cults take an occult knowledge? Yes. But do you take a cult into, you can make an occult. You can make a cult out of it, but you can't make an occult is basically what I'm saying. It's hidden knowledge. You learn it, you decipher, information, and you become your own guru, your own philosopher, your own spiritual guide. No one can do that for you. Just making sure I touched on all the points I wanted to there. If not, I'll go back to it. On the other hand, On the other hand, if we have the chance to spend time with a truly self-realized person of whom there is not an oversupply, we'll probably find value in doing so. After all, imitation is one of the major ways we learn. That includes intimidating. That includes imitating the actions and attitudes of others whose consciousness and behaviors we admire. So it's not saying, just because you're surrounded by a handful of these like minds, it doesn't necessarily, you'll find maybe one for every how many people that where one person really elevates you more than the rest. Because it's just what they have attained. And not only that, but you'll get a certain energy from them that really kind of might give off something that you'll be like, okay, I can learn from them. I'm not saying don't idolize them and worship them. People do that with, celebrities these days, and you don't want to be that fanatic of sorts. So, I definitely, recommend, if there's someone, you admire, embody some of those attributes which you admire, that you would like to personally give off yourself. Like if you're surrounded by monks and you want to bring about peace, or people of a witch community, this occult knowledge, whatever, or even natural and holistic people who just want to be spiritual. Once you start to surround yourself by that, it's okay, you might not have been on a health kick at first, but you admire it, you're learning about it, and now you want to be able to deliver a message like that. It works in the same sort of concept. So it allows you to become that, but not to, overdo it, is what I'm saying. So now let's consider some reflections about how to work or play with your chakras. Through moment-to-moment exploration, unknown mysteries about yourself and your surroundings can become unknown. Are you ready to go from learning about your chakras toward personally experiencing their qualities? So, like I said, it's a step-by-step process. Again, this is the book. If y'all tuned in at the end or skip to the end. Actually, I shouldn't even do that at the end, because then people are going to be like, oh, what is he reading? I'm actually stop doing that. But basically, like I said, it's just coming to these points of, going through the process of really getting to the ways of understanding where the problem is stemming from, and then gradually working our ways, like once we gain the understanding, which is mental, then, putting it in another mental state of being able to apply it in our daily life to actually bring about the change that we're looking for. So, definitely, still take this time to self-reflect until I enter the next chapter. Like I said, a bunch of you will probably know about this. A bunch of you probably understand this. Some of you may have had to hear it in a different light, to bring about light within you. So, like I said, if y'all have any questions, definitely feel free to leave comments, and I'll definitely get back to the comments once I start to accumulate, more of, listeners. So, yeah, definitely. Like I said, have a divine day. Peace. Gnostics.